Hey guys, what is up? This is the James Martin Experience. You're listening to episode 1 of this brand new podcast. Actually, I wonder if that's the tone I should go for, or you know what? Let's try another take, okay? We're gonna try and go for more of that radio feel, okay? Just for the fun of it. Ready, and take 2, action. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the James Martin Experience. This is your host, James Martin, brought to you by Kellogg's Fruit Cereal. They're great. Sorry, that's just me messing around. Anyways, this is a podcast I've been wanting to start out for a long time. Like, I've actually done one other podcast in the past, like 2 hours ago. If only 2 years ago. Was it 2 years ago? Anyways, it was a long time ago. I started another podcast. It was called The I Can Show. That was my experience in making a podcast, which was quite interesting, and I saw the benefits of actually starting up your own podcast. And I wanted to start one just so it gives me a good outlet so I can just talk about anything. Yes, I know I have the YouTube channel where this is primarily going to be on. I might put this on iTunes and Spotify and stuff like that. I know how. It's just a matter of whether or not I want to. So I'm going to figure that out at a later point. But this will primarily be on YouTube. And I know you might be like, well, James, why don't you just talk about your stuff on YouTube? Well, the YouTube, it's more or less me trying to help filmmakers. And so the content is more focused on trying to help filmmakers. This is more me just wanting to have a discussion. Originally, this podcast was going to be something like The Producer's Basement, which, now that I think about it, sounds really, really creepy. And the idea is that I would talk to other filmmakers and other producers about some of the stories we don't ever hear that goes on behind the scenes of movies and sets and stuff like that. But the more I thought about it, it'd be like, then I have to make arrangements for every single episode, and I have to make sure I have a producer on board. And not only do I find a producer or a filmmaker for that matter, but someone who's willing to talk about that stuff. And not many people are willing to really talk about that and go into detail. So, you know what? If I'm to be honest, I'd rather just keep this podcast vague, and it's just me talking about the different movies I like. I might talk about pop culture. I don't know. Like, my whole thing is I just wanted a platform and basically an excuse to talk about the stuff that I like, and some of it may be related to filmmaking. Most of it will actually be related to filmmaking, but yeah, just it gives me an excuse to just talk about anything that I want. So yeah, welcome to the James Martin Experience. You might be thinking, well, James, isn't there another podcast that uses that same name? Yes, if you're thinking about the Joe Rogan Experience, yes. Because originally I was thinking, could I call this the James Martin Show? Well, and then you might be thinking, well, why are you calling it the James Martin whatever? Well, the reason is just because I'm kind of lazy and I don't want to spend hours and hours and hours coming up with the name to describe the show. It's basically just me talking about my opinions anyways. I often use the word experience a lot anyways when describing movies or theaters and whichever. So you know what? We're going to use the James Martin Experience. That's just it, because you know what? I think you can also get hung up too much on the details and like, oh, I need to have the perfect name or the logo. Guys, I'm literally just starting this the day I thought about doing a podcast. I'm not making this up. Like this morning, I'm thinking, you know what? I should really just get started. Like, well, let's just call it, I don't know, the James Martin Experience. Let's just do that. And then we'll basically just, well, start. So that's literally what I'm doing right now. Sorry, I'm just hooking up my headphones into my recorder. So as of right now, I don't really have a profile. I don't have a logo. I don't have a brand. Heck, if you notice, I don't have a camera set up just because, like, the only camera I have is basically a DSLR, which DSLRs only shoot for 30 minutes at a time, and I don't really want to have to stop, go over, press record again, come back, and continue the topic, because that's a big pain in the butt. So I just rather keep it seamless. However, if you can help my YouTube channel if we can get to 5,000 subscribers, currently we're sitting at about 1,800, maybe. Yeah, I think we're at 1,800 last I checked. Hold on, let me go into my, as of right now, as of today, my YouTube channel, James K. Martin, has 1,839 subscribers. Okay. So if we can hit 5,000 subscribers, then I'll get a camcorder. It might end up being like a cheap camcorder, and that way we can have a camera facing me, because obviously you can't see what I'm seeing right now. I'm obviously at my office desk. I have a computer in front of me. So, I mean, I could be doing editing, or I even have a PS4 here. I could be gaming and stuff like that. I don't know. I don't have too many thoughts on this. I've actually thought about streaming at a later point. I think streaming can be beneficial. And basically, that would just be my excuse to just, again, it would just be my excuse to just talk. Just talk and be able to interact with you guys. Because right now, I can't really have a chance to interact with you guys unless I figure out something at a later point. Excuse me, I just had dinner. So that's where we are today. So moral of the story here, folks. Don't wait, just start with whatever you have. Okay? This episode might even end up becoming unlisted. I don't know. And as far as like how far am I going to go with this, I don't know. To be honest, I'm just going to keep going until I get sick and tired of it. Like, I don't really have an end goal of this becoming a thing necessarily. If you guys enjoy this, that's fantastic. Please smash the like on the YouTube video, or if you're listening to this on iTunes and Spotify and other platforms, please send this to your friends if you think there's any value coming out of this. I know I'm jibber jabbering a lot and there's not really any benefit coming right now, but I do plan on doing more helpful things, if that makes sense. And again, I might bring on other guests. I don't know. So I'm just explaining to, like, I guess what my thought process is and sort of the expectations. So, since it's episode 1, what shall we talk about? Well, I think the best place to start off a filmmaking podcast is let's talk about my favorite movies of all time. So, anytime someone asks me what's my favorite movie of all time, I mean, first of all, there's like tons of ways I can answer that. Are you asking about my favorite action film of all time, my favorite mystery, my favorite romance, my favorite animation movie, my favorite anime, my favorite based on a video game, my favorite horror, whatever? There's so many different answers, and I've always struggled with coming up with the number one answer. But really, the more I think about it, the number one spot that really just encompasses everything I love about movies, period, has to be Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. And there's a multitude of different reasons. First of all, I mean, what is there to say about the trilogy? Right? We all love the trilogy. It's absolutely just amazing. And it's one of the best adaptations of the books ever. But for me, the big thing that inspires me about Lord of the Rings is not so much the movies themselves, it's the behind the scenes. I can't get enough of those appendices. If this is something you're interested in, you can get what's called the extended edition of Lord of the Rings. You probably already know this. It's going to cost you a bit more than if you were to buy the DVD at the store. But you can basically go on Amazon, or if you're lucky and find it somewhere else, there's the extended editions, which basically includes more scenes in the movies that were not included in the movies. So those are a lot of fun, and those give more context into the books and the world building and characters, blah, blah, blah. But it also includes these appendices. It's basically like these 4 to 8 hour, just smacked my own microphone. These 4 to 8 hour behind the scenes of how they made the movie, from talking about Tolkien, to writing, to the art, to shooting it, to all the post work, and even the reaction afterwards. Like, honestly, I love it so much. Just adjusting my mic. Like, honestly, I love the movie so much. I love the appendices so much. I've probably watched the appendices more often than I've watched the movies, if I'm to be quite honest. But, like, when I say that The Return of the King really encompasses everything I love, like, it's a fantasy, it's kind of rated PG-13, mainly because it does have a little bit of violence, a little bit of gore, a little bit of scary scenes. It does include alcohol and stuff like that, and smoking, and maybe drugs, if you include, like, pipe weed and stuff like that. but also it's the third movie of a trilogy, and I have a really firm belief that you can do so much magic with the third movie of a trilogy. There's something so incredible about watching the third movie in a trilogy. And I say this because if you were to ask me what my number 2 favorite movie of all time is, and by the way, I want to make this very, very clear, just because these are my favorite movies doesn't necessarily mean they're the best. Okay, I will be the first one to admit that some of my favorite movies aren't necessarily the best. They're just, I love them. I love watching them. I love being entertained by them. But if I were to recommend good films, some of these would not make that list. So anyways, my number 2 favorite film would basically be The Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, which is the third movie in the Pirates of the Caribbean trilogy. Again, I say the trilogy. We don't talk about 4 and 5. But whether it's that, I don't know where in my top favorite films I would put Star Wars Revenge of the Sith, which again is the third movie of that trilogy, the prequel trilogy. And again, this is where like Pirates of the Caribbean, World's End, Revenge of the Sith, these aren't necessarily great movies necessarily. Like they're not solid. I'll be the first one to nitpick and find all the faults in either at World's End or Revenge of the Sith. But my goodness, I love them to death. Especially those two are, well, all three of these movies I just mentioned, whether it's Revenge, Return of the King, or at World's End, they're all dark. They all go to extreme climaxes. Just, I can't get enough of them. Like there's so much you can do with the third movie of a trilogy. Like you have all these characters that basically started off from nothing almost. You know, Aragorn was just a nobody. You have like Will Turner in Pirates of the Caribbean 1 was basically a nobody, and then he's now, spoilers, captain of the Flying Dutchman on this humongous battle in the sea and stuff. Revenge of the Sith, Anakin Skywalker was just a little kid in the first prequel movie, which was Phantom Menace. And here he is, like, fighting his mentor as a lord of the galaxy, and he's having a lightsaber fight, like one of the best lightsaber fights I've ever seen in all of Star Wars, above, like, a lava. That's intense. That is insanity. So those three movies really just encompass my taste as far as, like, live action movies goes, basically. And that's why, like, I'm always striving to make a fantasy movie, and especially a trilogy, because there's so much magic you can do with it. I mean, heck, even if you were to go to, say, The Hobbit 3, like, I'll complain about the Hobbit trilogy as much time as I have. Like, don't be surprised if I talk about the Hobbit trilogy in one of these episodes, okay? Again, that's why I make this podcast. But you know what? There's a lot of things I like about the third movie. Again, it's dark, it's intense, it's got a really nice climax. And, yeah, like, not too much to add to it. So, those would be some of my favorite live-action films, especially when it comes to fantasy, action, stuff like that. And especially Lord of the Rings, which is more fantasy than the other two. So, let's go to, I guess, my favorite animated film of all time. Now, in this category, if I were to talk about best animated film, to be honest, I gotta talk about the West, and I gotta talk about the East. So, in the West, the best animated film in my mind is Beauty and the Beast. Hands down. Beauty and the Beast is what I would say is what Walt Disney, the filmmaker, was trying to go for when trying to create magic on film. Okay? I'm a massive, massive fan of Walt Disney as the entrepreneur. I'm not talking about the company. I'm talking about Walt Disney himself. He is such an inspiration. And if you go on YouTube, there are tons, and I mean tons, of documentaries talking about his life and how he started making movies and how he started Walt Disney Land and Walt Disney World. Absolutely crazy. Just an absolute inspiration and a trailblazer by every definition. So, but when I think about, you know, he was trying to create this magic for families and stuff on film. And of course, he was doing that in a 2D environment, essentially. When I think about Beauty and the Beast, the animated film from, I think it's 1994, just encompasses everything he was trying to do. There's just awesome music and an atmosphere and great characters. The relationships with each other and the dynamics is just incredible. Whether that be the dynamics between the Beast, Belle, and Gaston, especially. Then you have all the furniture, which just have their own unique quirks and stuff like that. And I had no problem watching Beauty and the Beast. I still watch Beauty and the Beast to this day. I'll just be in my little room or in my office, and I'll watch Beauty and the Beast, no problem. That film is absolutely incredible. Which is funny. Like when I remember first being, I wouldn't say introduced. I always knew Beauty and the Beast existed, but I remember being 13 years old. And actually, was I 13? No, what am I talking about? I would be, this is 2009, so I would have been 14 at the time. Okay. 14, I'm in a little play where we did a kids version of Beauty and the Beast. It was called Beauty and the Beast Junior from a company called Musical Theater International. And yours truly played the Beast. And I figured, okay, might as well watch the movie. Let's just figure out what the heck the story is all about. I know it's a princess movie. I'm not a big fan of them. I'm just like, yeah, whatever. Let's just figure this out. And I fell in love with the story. I'm like, oh my gosh, this story is actually incredible. The Beast is so dynamic and has such a struggle to go through. And Belle also has a struggle to go through. And both Belle and the Beast have a fantastic chemistry together. And the acting is just phenomenal. And the music still gives me goosebumps to this day. Every time I hear the song Human Again, oh my gosh, it just breaks my heart. So that movie is just absolutely incredible. If I were to pick a number 2, it would have to be The Hunchback of Notre Dame, which I also think is very, very dynamic. I mean, some of the same people that did Beauty and the Beast also did Hunchback of Notre Dame, especially like Alan Menken and Howard Ashman. Sorry. Tim Rice came later. Howard Ashman did the lyrics for Hunchback of Notre Dame and Beauty and the Beast, and he's an absolute genius when it comes to musical theater for movies. Absolute genius. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say about Hunchback and Beauty and the Beast. Just solid, incredible stories. If you're really looking for examples of how to tell good stories, especially in that sort of genre and trope, those would be great examples. So, I mentioned about animated films in the West. Let's talk about the East. This is where we're going to get into anime, Japanese animation. So, what would I say is my favorite movie? Oh, well, I mean, I could talk about shows. I mean, I'm going to save that for an episode when I want to talk about anime, period. But if I were to quickly talk about a movie, what movies have I seen? I've seen 2 with My Hero Academia. I've seen Love, Chernobyl, and Other Delusions. I saw that movie. This is going to be one of those things I'm going to have to look down my list and be like, which one has I seen? I mean, that being... there's also like some Yu-Gi-Oh movies that I've seen. I'd probably have to say the second My Hero Academia movie is probably my favorite. And these are of the movies. Although this opinion might change because I'm trying to recall, okay, which movies have I seen? Actually, I just remember another one, which is Konosuba, Legend of the Crimson Demon. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to have to change my mind. Konosuba, Legend of the Crimson Demon has got to be my favorite all-time anime film, period. That movie is just, okay, so you have to understand. So Konosuba, God's Blessing on This Wonderful World, is a comedy. And most of you might think, comedy, yeah, it's going to have its jokes, but other than that, it's not going to have a great story, great characters. The show, I could easily argue, is having great characters. Story-wise, it doesn't really go anywhere too much. character dynamic wise and character development, I absolutely fell in love with it. But Konosuba, the movie, is insane. And it's hard for me. I don't really want to spoil it. Because I'm sure there's a lot of people here who have not actually seen that movie. You can find it on crunchyroll.com. You can either, I don't know if you can watch it for free, but you can get a subscription for like $15, or no, it's $11 now I think about it, and just watch that. Highly, highly, highly recommend it. It's not just a comedy. This movie has one of the greatest ending battle scenes ever. Like, it's in a magic world, so everyone uses all these different magic and magic spells and stuff like that. And granted, it's a bit more of a soft magic, but you never really feel bothered by it. There's something, because you know what this movie does really, really well compared to other fantasy movies, period, is that it's not so much about the magic system and about the magic they are using. It's about the character development along the way. That when you have a character that believes in themselves and gets over their self-doubt and self-loathing in a way, then their magic becomes stronger and much more powerful. And there's something about that that really resonates, that you can really connect with. Like, if I were to show you the soundtrack that also goes with it, oh my gosh, it's insane. The sound guys also decided to add some extra bass, which also adds a lot more weight to it. But the music is just so perfect. If you're a fan of the Konosuba show, but you have not seen the movie, so here's a nice little detail in the movie, okay? So, if you have seen the Konosuba show, you know that every time Megumin does her spell, there's that little theme that plays in the background. Right, you hear that little choir going on and the strings and stuff like that. So, they take that exact same theme in the movie when Megumin is releasing her most powerful of explosion magics, period. And they play that theme. They play it a lot more slowly, but with a lot more orchestra and a lot more expression. And just, holy cow, it sounds absolutely amazing. Just, I love those characters so much. I mean, again, I'll probably save, my actual thoughts on the Konosuba show for another episode. But, again, we're just focusing on my favorite movies of all time. That, I would say, has got to be my favorite anime film of all time. And again, we'll talk about shows and manga and stuff like that probably another time. Well, most likely another time. We're just focusing on movies. So on that topic, why don't we talk about, I want to say, a foreign film that's not anime. So now I'm trying to think, what foreign films have I seen? I remember in film school we had to watch this French film, which I didn't know anything about. I remember in film school I had to watch The Seven Samurai, which I had a very hard time finding, and the only movie I could find did not have subtitles. So I've watched it, but I had no idea what was actually going on half the time. So there's that. And then it's a matter of, well, which movies were actually filmed and where. Because on one hand, I could point towards the United Kingdom, but I don't know which films necessarily were made in the United Kingdom. One that does come to mind, though, I'm trying to remember its name. I lost it. What is... Oh, it was Sherlock Holmes, starring Ian McKellen. Then again, I'm pretty sure almost all the Sherlock Holmes films were made either in United Kingdom or the United States. Here's a great example of a good foreign film, okay? It's called, I believe it's called Tora Tora. So, Tora Tora is about Japan bombing Pearl Harbor in World War II. But what makes Tora Tora so special and so unique was that the writers wrote the story from both the perspective of the Americans and the Japanese. So in the film, you can see what the Americans were doing. You can see what the Japanese were thinking, what they were doing, stuff like that, and all the events that led up to Pearl Harbor being blown to bits, and even the aftermath. So I think that movie is very, 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 very special. I'm just trying to think of other foreign films I've seen, because if I can't, I'd say Tora Tora is probably my favorite. Although, to be honest, I don't watch too many foreign films, like outside of, say, Japan, for instance. Japan and United Kingdom, because lately I've been spending a lot of time watching anime and stuff. So, yeah, basically, best foreign film. I'm trying to think of what other categories could we talk about. I mean, we could talk about, let's say, R-rated, and I'm saying that because as of today, and today is July the 21st. Wow, this month's gone by quick. As of today, July the 21st, Disney Plus has now announced that Logan, Deadpool, and Deadpool 2 are now coming to Disney Plus. The first R-rated films to be on Disney Plus. Way to go. So I'm trying to think, what is my favorite R-rated film of all time? So I've seen all three of those. I've seen Logan, I've seen Deadpool, I've seen Deadpool 2. What else we got? We got 300, 302. Nah, that can't be it. I guess maybe it is. Okay. Deadpool, Deadpool 2, Logan, 300, 302. Which one of these would I say is my favorite R-rated film? I'd have to say probably 300. And I want to say 300 mainly because of the dark style with it. I love the grittiness of it. I love the cinematic mood it gives you. Like, I know there's some ridiculous things, like everyone goes in super, super slow motion and stuff, and or you have Xerxes that talks in a really, really low voice. But you know what? Like, I love dark tones. I especially love dark fantasy. I'm not talking about, like, what's that video game called? Like Dark Souls. Like, I wouldn't say gothic necessarily, but I love these dark fantasy stories where it's like you have the good guys, or sorry, I should say, like, your hero, your protagonist, whatever, and they're like, oh, all the odds are against us, so we're going to give it everything we've got to stand up for ourselves and save our country, blah, blah, blah. I love that. I absolutely love that dynamic. I love that trope, and I don't get sick and tired of it. So, 300. Story-wise, there's a lot of things that don't make sense. But watching the movie as an experience is a lot of fun, and I would recommend it to anyone who's willing to watch that kind of stuff. Granted, keep in mind, guys, it is R-rated, so obviously there's a lot of swearing, there's a lot of nudity, there's a lot of violence and gore, and just everything. So, favorite horror movie. It also just occurred to me, we didn't talk about, like, other genres. So, let's quickly go into other genres. So, the first one, let's talk about romance. What is my favorite romance film of all time? I do have an answer to this. What did I say was my favorite romance film of all time? There was one that actually I was thinking of. No, I think that I was thinking of my favorite show, which is basically an anime. Like my favorite romance show, which is basically an anime. What would be my favorite romance film? I guess you would have to go to... Trying to think, what romance films have I actually seen? Golly. I think the only romance film I actually like, and granted it's one of the very few romance films I've actually seen, would probably have to go towards a movie called Love, Chinubyo, and Other Delusions. which is a movie from the anime Love, Chernobyl, and Other Delusions. So now we can talk about my favorite mystery movie of all time, I guess. And I think there's a few qualifiers for this. One that comes to mind is Sherlock Holmes. What's it called? It's the Robert Downey Jr. one. It's the second one. Oh, A Game of Shadows, which I think is the better one of the two. I don't know if they're ever going to do a third one, though. It's kind of too bad. I really like the second one. The second one was really, really, really good. Just trying to think off the top of my head about any other mystery movies that I liked. See, I can name you books that I've liked. I used to be a big, huge fan of the Encyclopedia Brown series. As far as movies, though, I guess I'd have to give it to that one. And it's funny that I mentioned that, too, because that's also a really, really dark film. Robert Downey Jr. is absolutely incredible as an actor. He's just absolutely does a phenomenal job. And then, of course, you have music with Howard. Not Howard, what am I talking about? Hans Zimmer. I can't believe I forgot that name for a second. Who do you also have in that movie? You have Jude Law, Steven. I don't know his. I don't know. Anyways, Robert Downey Jr., Jude Law, they do an incredible job in this movie. Absolutely amazing. I love the forest scene where they're running and they do these crazy slow motion shots where like cannon shots are going right by the actors. Absolutely breathtaking. Here's the thing about a good mystery, guys. Okay, here's the secrets to a really, really good mystery story. If you're trying to write yourself a mystery, you need to give the audience all the clues. The thing that makes your protagonist different, the thing that makes your detective different from the audience is that the detective knows how to process information that you don't. Right? So they're the ones that can put two and two together, but your audience needs to be able to put two and two together as well. Right? Like one of the things that fell apart in the first Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes movie is that there was information that we as the audience did not know. Only Sherlock Holmes knew. And so it made it very less compelling. We weren't able to follow along and believe in that story. See, if I were to draw a comparison to the book series I just mentioned, Encyclopedia Brown, what made those books so special was that there was always the information there. You were always given the information that you needed. The only thing that separates the character in Encyclopedia Brown from the reader is that Encyclopedia Brown is way smarter. And so he spots the clues and is able to exploit them. And you don't know this until you read the very end of the book, and it actually gives you the answer and tells you what happened and why the characters were able to solve the mystery. So that's what goes into a really great mystery. And yeah, I love that Sherlock Holmes Game of Shadows. It's so brilliant. It's so well done. I love the portrayal of Moriarty. The actor who does that just does an incredible, incredible job. All right, what other movies do we have out there? I'll be honest, I'm not a horror fan, guys. I'm really not. So as far as horror and thriller movies go, not really a big fan. As a matter of fact, I'm so much not a fan of the horror genre that I remember seeing movie clips of the Saw franchise, the Human Centipede franchise, and the House of Wax franchise, both the old one and the remake. And I was so grossed out that I promised myself I would never watch those movies or the clips ever again. And to this day, I have kept that promise. I have never seen those movies. And to be honest, I really don't want to. I don't understand why you would want to watch movies that are just gross. That's just it. They're just gross. Like, I understand horror in terms of being scary. Like, listen, if we're talking about, like, okay, instead of a movie, okay, I'll name you a video game that scares me. Dark Pictures, Man of Medan. A lot of people don't like that video game. I actually really like that video game. as story-wise, I love that video game. I love the idea that all these monsters and stuff like that are basically your hallucinations. And so you need to be able to figure out whether or not it's a hallucination or not. But just, even if you do realize that they're all hallucinations, like being stuck in a floating ship where you go down, as the moment you go down a layer, it's already pitch black because the electricity's off. It's pitch black. It's just weird and creepy. Gosh, I don't know if you'd ever want to do it in broad daylight, mind you. Forget nighttime. It's already nighttime, regardless if it's, in the middle of the day or not. It's dark in there. So that's my thinking when it comes to a horror game. Or Little Nightmares. Well, actually, I haven't seen Little Nightmares. I've seen Little Nightmares 2, which is another video game. Really, really great game. That's a movie that's just, it's like when a spider lands on you and it's more creepy scary than anything. It's just, ugh. That's what I think of. So, Little Nightmares 2. I mean, obviously we're talking about video games. I might have an episode talking about video games, but the point is, guys, I'm not a huge fan. Oh, I can name my favorite horror movie. The Thing. Which I can't remember who was the filmmaker that made it. It's a really, really well-known filmmaker too. But The Thing, the original The Thing, which looked so cool, and with effects that were done practically, not this digital stuff that we see in the remake. This stuff actually looks really cool and really compelling, and not like this plastic gobbledygook that doesn't really fit into the scene. To be honest, I actually haven't seen the movie start to finish. I've seen clips, but I would already consider that as my favorite horror film to this day. And mind you guys, I'm not a big horror fan, so I don't watch a lot of horror. I don't watch a lot of thriller. And I'm trying to think, what other movies could I be talking about? I guess the only other one I can think of is an old movie. So, what is my favorite black and white film? These are most likely going to be movies made before... Oh, there's two others. We'll finish with these two, okay? So the first one is my favorite black and white film. The second one that I want to bring up is my favorite martial arts film. So, black and white. This could include The Wizard of Oz. This could include The Bishop's Wife. Great movie. This could go towards... oh, what's that movie called? Gosh almighty. It's a Wonderful Life. Great story. But I think I'd have to give it to... I'm trying to debate between Bishop's Wife and the original King Kong from 1933. I think I'd have to give it to King Kong, because King Kong moved me more and actually scared me more and played a bigger impact on me than The Bishop's Wife. Bishop's Wife is a really good movie, and it tells a really good story and a really great moral. But yeah, I'd have to give it to King Kong 1933. It's been a long time since I've seen that movie, though, so there's too much I can comment on it. But basically, this is where they did a lot more stop-motion animation, which always makes things like 10 times scarier than normal. Like, I remember watching the original Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, the one that's stop-motion and like dentist and stuff like that. I had nightmares as a kid about the Abominable Snowman. Or the Abominable Snow Monster. I had nightmares about that guy. So, I would attribute King Kong 1933. So, the second one, just to wrap this up, my favorite martial arts film. Of course, I'm a massive fan of Jackie Chan. I've tried to watch every single Jackie Chan film I can get my hands on, and thankfully a lot of those movies are available on YouTube, especially the old ones. And it could be, what's it called? I remember him doing Drunken Master, The Legend of the Drunken Master. Like he kept doing Drunken Master. I think it's called The Legend of the Drunken Master. It's a more newer one. I think it was in like 2003 or something like that. It's the one where he fights his bodyguard and stuff. Oh my gosh. Story-wise, it's really stupid. And production-wise, you can easily spot a lot of mistakes. But my goodness, as an action film, that is amazing. The Drunken Master is such a cool story. But if you even see the original one, it's like the 7 drunken gods. Oh my gosh. Whoops. I just flung my hands and I just knocked my audio recorder on the floor. That was just so brilliant of me. Okay, now I can hear myself again. But yeah, the 7 drunken gods. So good. So good. There was another one. It was called The Something of the Dragon. Oh, Heart of the Dragon. Heart of the Dragon, really, really good film. Directed by Sammo Hung. Sammo Hung went to opera school with Jackie Chan, and there was a third person who was a friend who also became a very successful actor and stunts person as well. Sammo Hung became a very successful director and actor, especially in Asian movies. And of course, Jackie Chan was famous worldwide. Those three went to opera school and then went into movies together. Sammo Hung directed and starred in this one movie. It's like the only Asian movie that's actually brought me to tears. There's Police Story. Police Story is absolutely incredible. It's Jackie Chan combining martial arts in a police environment and dealing with like guns and explosions and stuff like that. Like some of his best stunts are in the Police Story franchise, whether it's Police Story 1, 2, 3, or the a new Police Story. Some of you might also be thinking about Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon overall is kind of boring to me, I have to be really honest. It does have incredible fight scenes. Very, very, very nice. It's not my personal favorite, though, if I'm to be really honest. But overall, pretty good movie. I'm trying to think what other... I can't remember the name of it. Jackie Chan did this action comedy. Like, it's specifically a comedy. Like, really, really heavy comedy. That one's pretty interesting as well. I guess... Oh, another great martial arts film. I believe it's called The Hidden Kingdom. I might be confusing two different movies. There's one about like Jackie dreams, or Jackie's character dreams that he's in ancient China and meets his princess and has to help the princess, blah blah blah. And then Jackie in real life meets the princess in this underground kingdom, blah blah blah. Romance, she dies, he goes away, etc. There's another one which I think is American. I'm not sure. It has Jackie Chan and Jet Li. It's really cool when you think about the movies that Jackie has shared with other really big stars. It doesn't matter if it's Jet Li, Donnie Yen, or it could be Sammo Hung, it could be Chow Yun-fat. Doesn't matter. But this one he shares with Jet Li, and there's a fight scene between Jackie and Jet Li. And you have to understand that you have these two guys who are real at this point are both really, really well established, superior, like martial arts, like actor and stunties, who are both like, well, Jet Li especially is a prodigy when it comes to martial arts. Jackie Chan, he knows martial arts, but is probably not what you would consider a prodigy. He's a genius when it comes to figuring out how to choreograph a fight scene and using props, blah blah blah. But anyways, you have these two legends in a fight scene, and you have Jet Li who's doing the silent monk routine, which is a very, very well known trope that he has performed multiple times. And then you have Jackie Chan doing Drunken Master, which is one of his more popular tropes that he's done. And so watching these two go at it, these absolute legends doing their legendary styles, is just incredible. Like, I don't know how much money they'd have to pay for that scene, but holy cow, it is so worth it. It is so much fun. Because like, praying mantis, very good for catching bugs, but not tiger. Oh, so good. I think I would have to say my favorite martial arts film probably would have to go to, I want to say, Police Story or A New Police Story. It's been a while since I've seen either of those films. Maybe I'll catch up on them. I don't know. I guess I'd go with Police Story because the behind the scenes of that is really fascinating, and the stunts in that is so well done, especially the ending fight scene where Jackie's taking on like 36 guys. It's just absolutely breathtaking. So highly recommend go find that. I believe you can find the full movie in English, or no, you can find it in Chinese with English subtitles on YouTube. You might even find an English dub if you're lucky, but that's where I'd go looking. So that's it, guys. That's all I have the energy to talk about. I just mentioned about my favorite films of all time. So I don't know if this has been a great discussion. Maybe it's a complete waste of time. I'll see you next time on the next episode. I don't know where we're going to be talking. I keep saying we. I don't know what I'm going to be talking about next, but I'll see how this podcast goes. But if there's anything that you like about this episode, please put it in the comments. Whichever it is, write a nice review, please, on iTunes and Spotify. Anyways, I will see you next time on the James Martin Experience, guys. Peace out.